and developer at GitClear, and I have been analyzing Git data in various forms for about 10 years. I've seen the tools that are available to extract insights from Git data continue to improve and create several new opportunities to improve developer conditions over just the past few years. There are now at least 10 different companies that offer a developer analytics or a Git analysis type of tool. And these companies can triangulate data from Git with other signals like issue tracking to deliver a clearer picture of working conditions that developers can use to create a better working environment. Now, full disclosure, I work for one of these companies, but this talk is really going to focus on data, and it's going to focus on research data that has been conducted by third parties that can illustrate what some of the biggest opportunities are to improve happiness on the average dev team. I call the first opportunity Git developers their productivity fix, because when you look at the factors that developers cite as influencing their unhappiness, there's one that emerges beyond all others. Managers might guess that it's lack of schedule flexibility or poor work-life balance, and those are indeed cited as factors that are highly influential in a developer's workplace happiness. But the actual top voted factor is, I think, much weirder than any of those, because we always hear about developers hating poor work-life balance, but we almost never hear about what developers hate even more, which is lack of productivity. Yet the data is sitting right in front of us, courtesy of a 2022 survey by Stack Overflow that seems to mock our intuition. Why is lack of productivity such a common frustration among developers? Well, there's so many different reasons for that, but why not start with the most obvious, which is that most software takes weeks, if not months or years to ship. And sometimes even after it ships, the developers still won't get to see the results of their work in use. For these developers, what could be an affirmation loop of working hard and then seeing this hard work help customers is more like an affirmation dead end, where they work hard and then they see nothing, no observable result. Even if a developer is working at their maximum efficiency, every day that passes between when work is getting done and when work can actually be observed serving benefit weakens the potential satisfaction that a developer is going to feel. So that's where Git stats come in, because with relatively little effort, you can coax Git to visually affirm every developer's progress essentially in real time as code gets pushed throughout the day. Now, instead of push code resulting in little more than a Slack message to the hash commits channel, a picture can emerge that embodies just how much is getting done, so that developers can know that when they're working hard, that will immediately manifest as visual progress, visual proof of their productivity, not for their managers or their teammates, but for the developers themselves. Here's one example of using Git stats to affirm productivity. This is a free tool that visualizes the progress across all repos in an organization, but you can conjure similar results using open source tools like those that are linked in the article in our description. In particular, there's a Git stats repo that we link that is a popular open source option for generating a visualization that can be updated daily to affirm each of the developers on the team. Developers are starved to be able to see some kind of celebration of the progress that they're making. In a world where an important backend change often has no visual accompaniment to reinforce the developer's hard work, a colorful graph of what's getting done goes a surprisingly long way. All right, so let's talk about opportunity number 2, which I call review less code more consistently. This idea comes from 2017 research entitled On the Unhappiness of Software Developers, and it shows that another glaring problem in many workplaces is inadequate code review, which in turn becomes substandard code entering production. You could argue that 4 out of the 10 greatest causes of developer unhappiness are all tied to this struggle to consistently review code and the struggle to keep substandard code from reaching production. I believe the essential problem in this case is that developers naturally have a lot more enthusiasm for writing code than we do for reviewing it. Whereas the former tends to fill us with energy, the latter drains that energy. Honestly, it seems like the best solution would just be to not review code, if that were possible, without running headlong into issues with bad code quality that end up being even more deflating to developer morale than difficulty reviewing code. But there's good news for those that hate reviewing code too. And that's according to research GitClear has published, only about 5% of changed lines contain a substantive addition, deletion, or update. The other 95% of changes are what you might collectively refer to as change noise, stuff like white space changes, changes in auto-generated files, or moved lines. If reviewing code only meant reviewing that 5% of code that contains the most important changes that took place, it would go a long ways towards helping developers review a lot of code more quickly and make more effective use of the limited willpower that we all have for this often dreaded task. Enter one of Git's newest features, the color moved option. This is a really exciting option because our research suggests that about 30% of all change lines in a PR are what could be labeled moved code, code that's already been deployed in production, but it's been relocated from its original position within a file to somewhere else. Why are developers still reading PRs where this 30% of unchanged code is emphasized equally alongside the substantive changes that deserve attention? Once you start to see diffs with the full context of which lines are moved, it's really hard to go back because you know that there's so much lost signal that could otherwise tune your eye to the parts of a large change set that are most deserving of the limited time and willpower that we experience when reviewing code. So that brings us to the third opportunity, which is experiments that iterate towards happiness. Now you might say, well, it's much more difficult to use an A/B test to improve process than product because process can't be measured as clearly as product. And I would say that's true. But I would also implore you to think back towards what now seems like a very far away time of 2019 when there were lively debates throughout the internet because nobody trusted their data enough to believe that working from home was not this productivity calamity that many managers had assumed that it would be. Now, fast forward to 2022, I think most would agree that the working from home experiment has been a success for many teams, but is that really the only experiment that was worth running? I would say probably not. I would say if this experiment was sitting under our nose the whole time, maybe there's some other experiments that we could run. Next, you might wonder, but what kind of experiments can I try here? Are there really gains to be made as big as the work from home gain? I do still think that there's a lot of opportunities from code review to improve developer freedom, reduce the time obligations on the developer, create better code structure, and spending to improve the resources that are available to a dev team. I think all of these categories are rife with experiments that can improve the satisfaction of the developers on the team on a day-to-day basis. So let's say that you agree that some of these experiments could be interesting to try to run on the team. How do you choose the right stat as your source of truth? I think this is a very political question. There's a lot of potential answers out there. GitClear's answer has been diff delta. Now, there is empirical data that suggests that diff delta better corresponds to meaningful changes in code than conventional Git metrics like pull request and commit count. But we also acknowledge that those are much more familiar metrics to a lot of people. And so at the end of the day, I don't know that it's critically important which of these Git metrics you choose. I think what is more important is that as a manager, to give your developers confidence that you understand that developer productivity is not something that's going to be measured with one stupid Git metric. Rather, they're going to use the stat to be able to confirm that a potential improvement that can be made to the team is one that doesn't damage the productivity of the team. And if that's true, adopt it and iterate your way towards a work environment that serves the developers without reducing the overall productivity of the team. So I hope that some of these opportunities to create better dev happiness through Git stats have been useful, and I thank you for watching.